So I think we're ready to kick off our lightning talk track for the first time today. My name's Lucy and I'll be here throughout all of the lightning talks introducing everyone. And first up we have Chris, who's a JavaScript developer, a web app whiz, and from what I can see, a bit of an NIDC veteran. It seems you've done a talk at every single NIDC since 2017. But you're here today to tell us how it's remade reverse engineering apps into your own tools.
Cheers, thank you. Yeah, I've been here every year. I think I've got a hobby or something by now. I'm here to talk about how it's remade, and I'll have to keep looking back to look at the slides. So we get the whole who am I out of the way. I'm an engineer at Equipment Share. First time updating this slide in 10 years, which is interesting. I contributed to an open source README once, so now I'm an open source contributor. I wrote like 1 or 2 articles for SciPoint once, so I'm obviously now a SciPoint author. I like to think of myself as a jack of all trades, master of none, and this is the image of my worst ever hangover that haunts me throughout my life. So today I'm here to talk about how it's made. I remember growing up and watching the show How It's Made, and it goes through these like factory processes and how things are kind of built from scratch to start and the processes. And it's a really good show if you were like really, really bored on a Sunday, you wanted to sit and binge and watch something. You might learn how like chocolate bars and Viennettas are made, but you're never taking anything out of it. But it always kind of like gets me thinking about, how applications are made, how I can make my own versions of things, and how I can like reverse engineer tools to make things better and usable for me. So like, why reverse engineer something? Why make your own version of something? So you think about like the tools and the services you use on a daily process. So like you listen to Spotify, you look up your bin collections on the council site, you use the Transit app to get to and from home to the bar. And you're using all these tools and they're built okay, and apologies if anyone who works in these tools are here. I'm not trying to shit all over them. They work well, but then in practice, when you're trying to use something quickly and you're trying to get it to do your needs, it's kind of the crappy version that doesn't actually work for you and doesn't target all the things you're actually trying to do. So I've got a couple of different like case studies of like an existing tool, app, service that I then built my own version of to try and see like how can I reverse engineer this product, how can I make something usable for me. So the first like kind of use case I have is, someone's talking about music and they say, what was the last song you listened to on Spotify? The process of finding that out is, pulling out your phone, going, searching for the Spotify app, opening the app. By default, the app doesn't show you like what you were last listening to, so then you need to go tap on what was now playing or previously playing. It's going to take you about 5 minutes. By that point, that conversation's changed and that person doesn't care what really weird Taylor Swift song you've been listening to recently. So I wanted to simplify this process of going from what have I just listened to giving it to someone so they can put it in their ears. And especially if you're doing this non-in-person, you're trying to like send someone a link to a song over the internet, you're opening the app in your desktop, share. The share gives you 5 different options. You have to choose the link and then send the link and then hope the link works. And if it's Slack, does it show you the preview? All that kind of fun. So this is kind of like the most simplified version of like taking an existing product and making something that fits your needs and helps you. So thankfully Spotify and like other products, they have like a really good developer tool system. So Spotify has like their own web API that you can create an application that they call it, and that gives you an auth token. You can then hit this URL. So it'll hit this URL and say, give me the last 10 songs that I played. This will give you back a JSON response. It gives you like a ton of data that I assume Spotify does something with. There's a lot of data around like regions and how songs are being placed and how they're being listened to. But all I care about is the name of the song and the artist. So you can grab this information, and then what do we do with that? Well, we build a simple web app. I'm a JavaScript developer, so why not build a web app from this? So we can turn that into What's My Jam. So now, whenever I'm listening to a song and someone asks me what I listen to, say go to What's My Jam. Or I can send a link, or I can tweet it, and it'll give you the open preview image of What's My Jam. That is change the slides and stuff like that, but it could show it working in real life. Actually, probably can. This is really all going wrong. So then, this is now an interactive app that's talking to the Spotify web API. I can see my current jam. I also built it on a Windows computer as well at the time. I can see like my previous jams, and I obviously have a color scheme theme with all the music I listen to. I can quickly then send this link to people. No issues with that. Let's try and get back to the slide. It's always a very simplified way of saying, use an existing API that a product has. They actively encourage developers to build their tools using their own APIs. It's all rate limited, managed, that kind of stuff. And it's free as well out of the box, so you're not going to run into issues with that. So let's look at like a more kind of complex use case. So if you're like me, you're always questioning like which bin is going out this week. And we recently moved, well, say 5 years ago, we moved into the new estate. And there wasn't like that old person who put the bins out in the morning, so you knew which bin was going to go out. And you're coming home from the bar, and you're like, is it the brown bin? Is it the blue bin? So I want to go on the Belfast City Council website. So thankfully, I have GIFs for all these things. And if these GIFs don't work, I'll do an interpretive dance of what happens. So you grab your postcode, you go onto the council website, you click bin collection. It opens in a new tab for some reason. You then type that in, you hit find. Then you have to go to a drop down, find your house. I don't know why the house matters. There's different streets have different bins, and you finally get that information. That was so many clicks just to find what bin was going out that day. How can we then build the tool that simplifies this process? Thankfully, this is a web application. We're web developers. We can use the developer tools at hand to help us. So if we opened up the Chrome DevTools, went to the same site, we can then look at all the traffic that's going through this. And we filtered the DevTools down to say only show documents because it's a server rendered application. So we're going through the same steps. Put in their information, and then you can see in the DevTools on the side, we get the page back, and it has the information that's being displayed to the user. But we know that's just HTML, so we can go in, look at the HTML, and find the information that was displayed to us. So now we have a URL that takes like body parameters, URL parameters, that returns a response. So we've skipped those like 4 steps to get to this point to say, well, I can grab that URL, and I can just grab that URL, maybe save it, or send us a curl request. But we can grab that. The Chrome DevTools gives you the ability to copy requests as like a fetch. So it's written the JavaScript for us. So we can take that information and say, right, let's build a web application. So we grab the request that comes from the DevTools, and this is already populated all the headers, all the tokens that we need, and it's got all the parameters in this. In here, it just has the postcode and the house address. So we could swap this out, we could make this configurable, but in this case, I only care about my address. So we grab this, but we need to do something with the request that comes back. So there's different tools out there. My go-to at the minute is a tool called Cheerio. And it gives you a very much jQuery-like experience. If you're as old as me, you remember jQuery. And you can grab the raw HTML, put it into Cheerio, and then start querying on it like you would any other kind of DOM-based structure that you would do in the DevTools, or if you're using jQuery or a document query selector. And we can then write a really fragile CSS selector that will only work until the council changes their website, because they don't want to add any tags that allow us to easily grab this information. Well, maybe they do, maybe they don't. So we can grab this and say, right, this is our bin collection. And from that information, then we build a web application that when we open it, it'll make that fetch request for us, parse that HTML, and return back just the information that we need. So now we have Bin Buddy. So when I open up Bin Buddy, it tells me that it's a general waste bin every time. Well, it's a general waste bin for Friendly Street, just across the road, because I don't want to dox myself. But anyway, so Bin Buddy then allows us to see that. So we've skipped those 5 steps. Clicking a link that opened the tab, typing in a postcode, selecting an address. It doesn't show in the GIF as well. The input for the postcode doesn't trim the text. So if you have a space at the start or end of your postcode, it will not trim that and tell you it's an error and stop you even more from going through that process. So like if you work for the council and you're in the web department, that's a quick fix. So we've simplified a process going from like 5 different clicks, going to 2 different sites to saying like I can save this as a PWA on my phone, and now instantly I know when my bin's going out. So then on to the third case. So we've all probably used the TransLink app before. We've a love-hate relationship with it. All I want to know when I look at the TransLink app is I live in City Hall, hypothetically, and there's a bus at Donegal Square West that goes from there to Lavery's. And I want to know when the next bus going from my house to Lavery's is, and when the next bus from Lavery's to my house is. I don't care about any other services. I just want to know that information. So if we look at the TransLink app, we can have to go through a number of different steps. So you go to the journey planner, you go to next service. It already had my searches for my stops, but you might have to search that yourself. Very hard to find what stop you're at. it's listing out every service that goes to that stop. All I care about is the 9 A, B, and C. I don't care about any other services because they don't go to libraries. So I'm going through all these steps just to find out that quick information. So thankfully, on Mac, I don't know how you do in Windows, you can install mobile Apple iPhone applications as apps on the MacBook itself. So I can install the Journey Planner on my Mac, and then I can use a proxy tool. So the tool I chose, it's free and open source, MITM proxy. I don't know if it's MIT proxy or something like that. Perfect. I've been questioning that for ages of using this. But all it really does is it intercepts all the traffic going from your machine out to the internet, and it allows you to kind of like grab all the information. Like by default, there's no like dev tools for an iPhone app. There probably is, I just don't know. But there's no like, open, inspect element, look at the network panel, so you can see all the network requests this tool's been making. So we can use this proxy, install it, and say like, harvest all the traffic that's going through, and then open up the Transit app and see what requests it's being made. And when you actually look at the traffic, it pings your location on every tap in the application, which is really weird, and it has a very good location. When I was doing this, I had to like hide so much information because it was doxing me constantly. But we enable the proxy on our Mac. This is like we're piping all the traffic through this proxy, and then we run our man in the middle that I own now, proxy tool. It has a web interface or as a terminal interface, so we can run this, and then we can say only filter down for translink traffic. So this is going to say only show us what's translink, and then we then need to open up the translink planner, which I did happen already in the slide, but I should have. So now we can see all these requests being made by the app. So we go into the stop that we care about, it'll make a request to give that list, but then we say, well, we only care about certain parts, so we can look at the response coming back and say, this is what the JSON structure looks like. I can now then do something with this. And the running theme is, let's build a web app out of this. So out of that was born Last Call Shuttle. So it's pinging the Transit API and giving me back information. And actually, because I have this data, I can do more important things with it. So this is telling me how many minutes. I did this last night. That's why it's like 300 and odd minutes until the next bus. It was like 1 in the morning. I can see how many minutes until the next bus is coming. By default in the Transit app, it just tells you the time. And I don't want to do maths, especially when I'm coming on the return journey home, when I can't do maths. So I now have this small app that I can say, pull up my phone, I know this is going to take me to the bar or it's going to take me home. I don't have to think about it. I have to click through this different product. But then this wouldn't be a talk in 2025 if there wasn't like AI involved in it somehow. We have to fit that in somewhere. So the extension of this is, well, what if we built an MCP server from this tool? So if you've never heard of MCP, it's Model Context Protocol. It's more or less like you build an API that an AI tool can talk to, and you expose tools which are kind of like endpoints that it can hit and get information and then reason on. So we can use the MCP TypeScript SDK, which is like a really good out-of-the-box tool that allows you to build an MCP server. You can then publish the package to NPM, and that is live. You can connect this to your own Claude and stuff like that. I don't know why it would be useful to you, but and then you can use the MCP toolkit to like test this locally and everything. So what does this give us? Like, instead of just AI for the sake of AI, this is the code of it. So you create in the MCP server, you define like what your tool is going to be. You then give it, what is the inputs and outputs that you're going to be talking to, and you can kind of define what the data is going to come back, what data is going to go in. So this is showing that we can give it a home to bar and bar to home parameter. You can then register different tools. So these are like the APIs for it. So you can say I have a home to bar tool, which will only give me information on buses going home to the bar and bar to home, vice versa information. So this is telling your AI tool of choice what it can do. So then what does this become useful for? So if we install this MCP in the VS Code, from the VS Code like Copilot chat, we can say when is the next bus, and it'll return us back to the next bus. That takes a long time, but that's kind of useful. Yes, like why would I be asking Copilot? But say we're about to build the newest, greatest CMS tool for our blog that no one ever visits and we never write blog posts for. But we don't know if we have enough time to build that before the next bus to the bar. We can ask Copilot, do I have enough time to build this complex tool before the next bus? So the GIF goes on for a while, but you can see then the output. It can tell me, well, it's going to take you a long time to build this tool. The next bus is still in like 5 hours, because this is 1 in the morning, remember? The bus is in 5 hours, so you do have the time to do this, or you might not have enough time to get this built. So we can link that full system. So now I don't need to go to Transic's site. I can ask Copilot or Claude when my next bus to the bar is. Closing up, I know I'm running out of time. So not legal advice, I'm not a lawyer. These are free and open, connected. Like, I don't think it's legal to do this. Be respectful, don't try and DDoS TransLink. Use public APIs when you necessarily don't like grab keys for things. Obviously, this is all personal. You'll still be building a new startup over this. If you do, credit me in it. And don't expose personal data. If you find like personal data on a service, like expose or contact that company, tell them. And thank you.